He began talking to the dead man. "Comrade, I didn't want to kill you. If you jumped in again, I wouldn't do it as long as you stay calm. Now I understand, you're a person like me, but I only thought of your grenades, your bayonet, and your weapons. Why didn't anyone tell us that you're just like us, scared and afraid? Your mother and ours fear for us. We fear death too. If we throw away our weapons and take off our uniforms, how could you be my enemy? Take 20 years from me, comrades, stand up, take more. Because I don't know how to live the rest of my life." These were Paul's words to a dead man, a French soldier he had killed with his own hands. Paul found a diary, several letters, and a few photos on the soldier's body. One photo showed a woman and a girl, likely the soldier's wife and child. The diary read, "Gerard de War, typesetter," the soldier's name. "I killed typesetter Gerard de War." This was Paul's inner turmoil. Notice how the author describes it. Paul didn't say enemy or soldier. After death, enemies and soldiers finally had names, revealing their true identities. He was typesetter Gerard de War, killed by Paul. Until the second night, Paul was found by his comrades and returned to the German lines. The unit had rotated again. They no longer engaged in direct shooting with the enemy on the front lines, but were tasked with clearing villages destroyed by the war. Yet even in this role, they came under artillery fire. What does this show? It indicates that the Allied forces were pushing against their lines. Even retreating to villages behind the front, they still faced artillery shelling. The Allied forces were gradually advancing towards German territory, steadily pushing them back. During this bombardment, both Paul and Kropp were injured by the shelling and were admitted to a field hospital. Kropp had to undergo amputation this time. By now, it was 1918, and Paul and his comrades had been on the front lines for nearly 2 years. The field hospital was overcrowded and chaotic. After several wounded soldiers died in their beds, new patients would replace them, only to repeat the cycle. The conditions in the field hospital were described by the author as follows. "In our ward downstairs, we have men with abdominal wounds, spinal cord injuries, head wounds, and double amputations. On the right wing of the corridor are those with jaw wounds, gas poisoning, wounds to the nose and ears, and neck wounds. On the left wing are those with eye injuries, lung wounds, pelvic wounds, joint injuries, kidney wounds, and stomach wounds. Every part of the body can be wounded. This one can only know when one gets here, and this is just one field hospital, one ward. Germany has tens of thousands, France has tens of thousands, Russia has tens of thousands. I see nations forced into enemy. People silently, ignorantly, foolishly, obediently, innocently kill each other. I see the world's cleverest minds creating weapons and speeches to make all this more exquisite and enduring." Paul was admitted to the field hospital, where his comrades continued to die or suffer injuries. Finally, Paul began to contemplate his future. "For years now, our job has been killing. This has been our first profession in life. Our understanding of life is limited to death. What will happen next? What will we become? People will not understand us, those who grew up before us. Though they spent several years with us here, still have their beds and jobs, and they will return to their former lives, soon forgetting the war, while those who grew up after us, like us before, will feel alien to us, pushing us aside. We are superfluous to ourselves." After recovering from his injuries, Paul was sent directly back to the front lines from the field hospital. At this point, the novel was nearing its end. The author's descriptions of death were no longer as vivid and raw as before. They became more casual and simple. For those on the front lines, death had become commonplace. They were no longer surprised, they had long been numb. Let's look at the fates of Paul's classmates. Muller died because an illumination flare struck him in the stomach, and he groaned in pain for 4 hours before dying. Before his death, Muller gave Paul the boots he had taken from another soldier. Here, Paul showed no emotional reaction. Remember when Muller had asked for these boots, and Paul had even stepped on Muller's foot? When Muller knew he was going to die and handed the boots to Paul, what was Paul's reaction? Paul simply said, "They fit me well." Paul was also indifferent to death. Lear, another of Paul's classmates, also died. He was hit by a bullet that tore up his buttocks, and he bled to death. When he died, he collapsed like a deflated pipe, powerless. The author's description of death here lacked any emotional color, and even carried a slight derogatory tone. When a person died, it was like a deflated pipe collapsing there. So did Paul die? We come to the end of the book. He fell in October 1918. In this passage, the author uses he, not a specific name like Paul, John, or anyone else. It's just he representing all the soldiers on the front lines. The author writes, "That day, the entire front line was eerily silent. The military command's report simply read, 'All quiet on the Western Front.' He fell forward, as if lying down to sleep. If turned over, it would be seen that he had not suffered much pain. His face was calm, as if he was satisfied with such an end. Death had become a satisfactory conclusion for the soldiers on the front lines, more satisfying than staying alive." World War I was the first war in which modern weapons such as airplanes, tanks, artillery, grenades, flamethrowers, and poison gas were widely used, leading to unprecedented casualties. By World War II, human technology had advanced further, and so did the casualties caused by warfare. This is why Einstein said, "I do not know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Because all the accumulations of civilization would be wiped out in World War III, and humanity would regress to the primitive age. This is why Einstein opposed war. Of course, different people have different views when faced with war. However, no matter how we interpret it afterwards, war brings profound disaster to those involved. Moreover, war brings disaster not only to individuals or groups of people, but even to generations. This is a classic masterpiece, a book that once you pick up, you won't be able to put down, a book that no matter when you reread it, it will still shock you deeply. It is a book written over 100 years ago. Today, I have a prepared takeout for everyone. In the face of a classic, all we can do is look up and contemplate, rather than summarize and generalize. Closing this book, we can still see Remarque, the author of this book, writing in the preface. This book is neither an accusation nor a confession, and I am only trying to describe a generation destroyed by war, even if they survived the shells. All Quiet on the Western Front has been shared with you all. Thank you all for spending this time with me. If you feel that this book has also touched your soul, feel free to share it with your friends, so that more people can experience the generation baptized by war over 100 years ago and the generation destroyed by war.